So Phil, I went basically undefeated in an 8 round tournament. I lost in the top. Sorry, I lost in the last round of Swiss to the guy I eventually beat in the finals. But otherwise, like I played in the tournament. I basically took no real losses, and it's kind of a vindication of the way that we have been prepping for major events.
Yeah, explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, so when we went up to do the pre-modern event up in New York when I came up the night before to hang out. Obviously, we wanted to hang out a little bit, but also more importantly, and this is the same thing when we went to LobsterCon and for the most part, anytime we do like a big legacy event, we meet up and we will spend the night before jamming a gauntlet. Now, I did that to complete, success for a completely different card game, Sorcery, which only goes to show you how potent this plan is. This was my very first ever live event where I didn't play the first time I played this game sober, basically, and the
Maybe
first
that's what we
time
should be doing for Legacy, Zach. Maybe we should just be getting
just
fucking
practice
wasted.
drunk.
Just absolutely sloshed.
Like it's like that Hemingway quote, "Write drunk, edit sober." This is
Dude, that's not bad. Yeah.
This episode of Eternal Durdles is sponsored by CardMill, the first automated scanner and sorter built specifically for trading card game players. With its intentionally compact design, CardMill uses AI-powered recognition to identify each card and sync inventory with real-time pricing, batching up to 300 cards at a time by name, set, color, or type. Collection data is securely stored in the CardMill network, giving players full access to their cards through an easy-to-use web portal. CardMill supports Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Flesh and Blood, Disney Lorcana, Star Wars Unlimited, and many more to come. Created by software engineer and longtime Magic the Gathering player Jonathan Dumanis, CardMill launches on July 22nd on Kickstarter with early bird pricing starting at $350. Backers receive lifetime access to all software updates and new features. Go to cardmill.com to learn more and reserve your path to the future of card sorting. This is the exact same concept, but for collectible card games. So I generally would go to my buddy Harry, the owner of Moxfield. I'd go over to his place and we would play Sorcery as kind of just a way to hang out, like bro down, play a little bit of Magic. We'd play a little bit of Magic. We'd play different card games and just hang out. A very casual situation. So we started saying, wouldn't it be fun if we picked up a different hobby and we weren't just, we had been playing EDH a lot and I was kind of getting sick of 4-player casual formats. It doesn't tickle my brain. So we picked up a different card game. We picked up Sorcery. We started playing Sorcery just as like a way that it would still tickle my brain for that competitive 1v1 aspect, but also like it allows us to brew. Whenever you pick up a new card game, you get to do a little bit of brewing, figuring out the game, learning the new game and kind of getting a feel for it, right? And that's basically what we had been doing for the last like year with this game is just kind of like tinkering around, learning the game and playing it against each other in a vacuum, basically. Like just the two of us. We didn't really have a local meta. There's nowhere playing it. This is often the problem with playing non-Magic card games is that there's no one to play these games against. But when I saw that there was a cornerstone event, which is kind of like a PPTQ for Sorcery, I was like, hey, there's a local one. Let's go to that. He lives literally down the block from the place. So I was like, sweet. Like, I'm gonna come over the night before. I'm gonna bring 4 proxied up like gauntlet decks. I'll bring my deck, you bring your deck. And the way this works is, and this works for Legacy, Premodern, Sorcery, Overpower, you name it. This concept is translatable to every collectible card game. You find the top decks in the meta, and you say, hey, it's me versus you, right? You start off playing your decks against each other. Whoever wins, that's the coin flip, right? Whoever wins, that person has to go through the gauntlet. Now, you just start with the weakest deck in the gauntlet, and you go all the way through. And the other person, so that was Harry beat me in the first round. I'm playing the gauntlet decks against Harry, right? What's great about this is now I'm learning how these decks play, which is very important if you want to know how to beat other decks is to like play them yourself, right? I'm getting something out of playing against him, and he's getting something for him because now he knows how to play against these decks, right?
Yeah, and what you're there's two things. I'll get into the quick one. I'll interject before and then keep going. Which is, if anybody ever wants to build a gauntlet, there's a website called metadeck.me where you actually can put together just a list of 12 decks, and then it will print all on the same sleeve. So then like you can cut it up and then sleeve it into like just a bunch of proxy decks. But then you don't have to like acquire the cards or make a bunch of different proxies. You literally are looking at 12 different decks. And if you're entrenched enough, you understand like all of the cards in those decks and all the top. It's just like whatever you decide to put in there. But you can playtest 12 different lists all in the same pile of 75 cards, which is really lovely.
That is basically that's what we did, but I printed out 4 decks.
Yeah.
Put 4 decks together. So that, because depending on the game you want to play, there's an aesthetic professionalism, I would say, that comes along with like wanting to hang out with your friends and play cards, right? If you're jamming for a tournament, different scenario, it's all business. Just play the names of the cards, do the thing, right? So anyhow, so we got in a lot of practice that night. We even watched Nightbreed while we were doing it. Got in some 80s horror action as well, which was great. But
yeah.
And then the epilogue to that is that the next day we went to the tournament. And again, like I said, this was both of our first tournament. So I had no idea what to expect aside from what I've seen content wise from people that put stuff together, a little bit of meta knowledge, and knowing that Gen Con was this weekend, so doing a little bit of research to see what's up with Gen Con. Phil, have you ever played Tecmo Bowl? It came out in like 1990 for the Nintendo.
No idea what that is.
So there is the Raiders. I'm sure you're familiar with the football team, the Raiders.
Yes.
If you play the Raiders, you get Bo Jackson. Bo knows. Bo Jackson was the most overpowered character in the game. I'll put up like the meme of Bo Jackson. It's just he can run across the field and dodge everybody. Everybody else is like trying to get him, and he just completely like never gets caught, right? And that is exactly how I felt at this tournament. Like there was only one time where I felt like I was unprepared. It was the one time playing the person that beat me in round 5. And when the finals came and I went up against that person, again, I felt like Bo Jackson. I was like, oh, I know what you're doing now. I know exactly how to prepare against this deck. I'm just going to do, I mulliganed to the proper hand. My deck was an off-meta deck, which was great because not everyone knew how to play against it. Sorcery is a bit of a complicated game, and there's some funkiness to the rules where they haven't like kind of they haven't hashed out everything yet. There was a little bit of hemming and hawing as to like what each card really means, because there's not a Magic the Gathering stack that happens, that sort of thing. And a huge amount of grace from every one of my opponents that like it was a very casual atmosphere as far as like take backs and stuff like that were concerned, because it was a lot of people's like very first real event.
You cannot sacrifice it if it's already on its way to the graveyard.
Yeah, stuff like that. Or like the big one was I had a thing that at the end of turn deals 3 damage to my opponent. Now in this game you can't go over 20 life. You hit 20 and you stop, right? Mike Herbig, friend of the show, had a card that gained him 1 life at the end of turn. Now he's at 20. If my thing happens first, he takes 3 damage and then gains a life. Goes to 18, right? If his thing happens first, he goes to 17 because he takes no damage first. He gains 1 life, gains nothing because he can't go above 20, and then takes 3 damage, right? Things like that they just really haven't hashed out in this game because they're not used to 2 things happening at the same time, because the game implies sorcery is actually a very apropos name for the game, because you play your turn, nothing you can do, right? Your opponent, like the best your opponent can do is block on their turn, right? Beyond that, everything is happening at sorcery speed. Basically, there's no instance,
There's no stack.
Yeah, there's no real stack. So questions like that are like, well, what do we do? Finding the right high-end cards for legacy, vintage, pre-modern, or old school Magic can be challenging. That's where a friend's 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or 500 euros, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3for1 Trading for supporting the Legacy community. Now back to the show.
And yo, all hats off to the staff at Top Deck. Dave, the guy who ran the tournament, was awesome, but it's a brand new game. Dave was reading from the rulebook. You know, he's not like a level 9 sorcery judge, you know? So we did the best with what we had, with what we could put together as far as, you know, the rules knowledge and stuff. And there were some things that we messed up and whatnot. Like I said, everyone was there was a lot of grace and like, let me take that back. I didn't realize that that's how that worked. Is that cool? And everyone, for the most part, like, I did it, my opponents did it. And it was kind of like, we're all here trying to do our best, but like, you know, people are going to screw up. And this is it is a casual-ish event. There's not a ton of, like, I walked away with like $500 worth of prizes and stuff, but like, you know, for the most part, nothing real was on the line.
What I took when you were messaging me and you were just like on your run, you were like, yep, XO, undefeated, whatever, like going into top 8, sweet, like just won the whole thing. As I was like, okay, like for the listeners out there that know the types of stuff that we do, we don't get to do that often. But when you were doing it, it sort of made me go, when you explained to me, because I don't fully understand the game. Like, there's been attempts to teach me so far, but we haven't had like a time to actually settle down and learn it.
We've got to get that done, because now that I'm doing like
now you're just crushing. Yeah. So, but I had asked you, I was like, what deck did you just play? Like, I just straight up asked, like, I don't know any of the decks, but I was like, what deck did you play? And you responded Enchantress. So that way I would just understand what was going on. And I was like, yeah.
No, that's the name of the deck. It's literally the avatar that you play is called the Enchantress.
All right, well, I definitely internalized it as, like, you're just playing what is essentially the Enchantress strategy of, like, high-volume stuff that just all cantrips to, like, overwhelm the opponent with whatever.
It's similar to that. It's more like your avatar, which is kind of like your planeswalker.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you cast a spell, you take one of your enchantments, which just work like enchantments in Magic, and it becomes a creature with the power and toughness equal to its casting cost. So
okay, so you're playing Zur, yeah.
Just like, so I'm playing like Titania's Song, basically.
You're playing Titania's Song. When you said that, I internalized it as, oh, he's just playing a deck that I understand into a different game and crushing with it and understanding the concepts from this game in applying it to a new game and just like essentially leapfrogging where there's a bunch of learning curve on other things and you're just applying what you've learned from Magic and doing that. And then I was like, okay, that like inspired me to an extent. And then because right after that, I played a league that is on cam where, you know, I get absolutely crushed. But along the way, like as I was thinking about like, okay, well, like Zach was applying like the stuff that we talk about into this other game and crushing with it. And so I was like, it just got me to thinking like, okay, what am I not analyzing about where we're at in like current Legacy as we've been going through everything? Because like clearly the methodology can be effective because you just proved it by crushing an event where you just XO'd. So it's like, there's got to be something that I'm missing here. And I realized that like I took a step back, like you playing a different game and crushing like made me realize like, let's just take a step back because we've been trying to solve the same problem for a while on these on where the format is at for Legacy and how it's not changing. And I was like, nothing seems to be working, but at the same time, we can't just assume that it is unsolvable or uncompatible because otherwise, like, why would it, like, nobody want, like, there has to be something because if there isn't hope for that or like the possibility of that, then the format is actually just like systemically broken. And okay, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, and we can't even assume that because it will eventually change, right? Like either more cards will get printed, cards will get banned, right? But what I think is important is this point in Legacy specifically is an opportunity, right? Where the card pool is stagnant, the deck pool is also stagnant, which means that if you maximize on pivoting, that's where like that's the biggest like X factor, right?
So you want to know where you're like you taking something and applying it to something else and having success with that as where that got me to? Against all of these decks, I'm like, well, I have a plan. I have the plan. And even when I execute the plan, it is still not good enough. Like, I noticed that, like, the play pattern, like, XYZ should be this, but they always happen to have, like, the second piece of way to protect their thing, or they have just a follow-up, which is a redundant piece. And it seemed like it was just happening so consistently that I'm like, okay, even though the percentages suggest that, like, these sort of outcomes should not be happening at the clip that they're happening at, at the same time, it's a warm body across from you that has agency over the decisions. So like in a vacuum, these things should not be happening a percentage of the time. But then if you apply like, active wanting to increase that percentage and, by a player literally piloting the deck, I was like, I don't know what that increases the percentage to, but it certainly is not like, the whole, like, if you open your hand and you have a, 40% chance of opening a 4 of or whatever, or like the combination of Entomb plus Reanimate on turn 1 with backup is like, so like impossibly negligible that like it can't be happening a majority of the time, because like if you compound the one card in the opener plus the other card in the opener plus not having the tutor target for the Entomb in hand, like the percentage that can happen as consistently as it does can't actually exceed like more than a coin flip. But man, does that sort of thing happen consistently? Like there is something that is amiss with the just looking at the blanket statistics up front and being like, this shouldn't be happening more than this percentage of the time, because it consistently does. Always. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be something different here. So the plan that we've been that I was looking at of like, okay, I'm trying to solve for this thing. The thing is that by doing so, like I need to then have the answer plus protection plus everything, like on the draw against a thing where the percentage is higher. So I was like, maybe I'm picking the wrong battle. And that's where I was like, Zach went to a different thing, crushed with it. So maybe I'm looking at this incorrectly. Maybe I need to look at where, like, so what I've started doing is I started looking at the cards that can win the battle over the thing as opposed to the actual thing itself. So like, I was like, maybe I don't need to like have redundant removal spells. Maybe I just need to have ways that go over the top of the protection. So it's like
maximizing extract, for example.
Extract is something that I just like as the proactive thing on the board. But what I was thinking, like, okay, well, how do I play? What is a playable card that I can play in the main that's good against the, Entomb Reanimate on either the play or the draw, or that's also good against any of the other, like, Thoughtseize Dark Ritual decks, or against like the Kozilek's Command, whatever stuff. And Kozilek's Command is where I really was like, maybe there's something here. I started looking at Flusterstorm again. And I started looking at Flusterstorm really heavily because I was like, well, I like Flusterstorm against the Dark Ritual deck. So like anything that's like Oops, Doomsday, like obviously all the stuff that, Flusterstorm's always been good against. But then I was also looking at it as like, well, it's good against Entomb, it's good against Reanimate, and it also is good against whatever their protection is, right? Because they can't go Entomb, Reanimate plus Daze and beat the Flusterstorm. They can't go Entomb, Reanimate plus Force Will and beat the Flusterstorm. So I was like, so if I then, like, let's say we even get into a position where they have Entomb and Reanimate and then put the Atraxa on this deck. And for my POV, I was like, well, if I can source the Atraxa and then, outgrind, at least the game continues going on, right? Like the game didn't ostensibly end. So it's like, in the same way, it's like if I can then protect the removal spell from resolving, that way they can't, like, it just like sent me down a whole path of like stuff that like we haven't known before. Like we've played Flusterstorm many a time. Like it's not like it's an unusual thing to do, but like I just found that the ground being so low and like the targets for the deck actually being really high in the current metagame, like it's a little softer against like Breakfast because they're a creature combo deck and an Urza Saga deck. But if you need to just convert spells that way they can't protect them, then if you win those wars, then the density of stuff that you need in order to like go up cards, like you don't have time to go up resources because games ostensibly end on turn 2. Where's your window that you're going up cards? It just doesn't exist. So you have to be able to win those wars, and Flusterstorm being able to do that in QA, and it just started me going down the path of like, what are the other cards that we haven't looked at in a long time that maybe would be the things to combat current day Legacy? Or the top decks. Even if you're playing one of the top decks and you're like, I just want an edge in the mirror. If you're on the draw and you're playing in the mirror, like Flusterstorm's going to be hot everywhere. But like, I don't know if this is like, if other people have already like expanded on this path, but like, it took me a second, but it was really you going into a different game, crushing with it and going, okay, yeah, I just like applied what we know to a different game in a different way and then like had a positive outcome. And it's like, okay, well, how do we then like just apply that methodology? And I for a while was just so sucked into like, yeah, this format's trash, it sucks, everything's bad. And like, I tried other solutions that weren't good enough because the format was too wide. And then I was like, well, if the answers are so wide, like if the threats are such that there aren't the answers to beat it all, then whatever the best answers are, if you can protect those things to go through or just stop the stuff from ever touching, that's going to be higher value options. I don't know. Am I making any sense? Like that your weird inspiration got me over to Flusterstorm.
Since you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe the video. It helps the channel grow.
Support Eternal Doodles on Patreon so we can create even more content and cover events.
Patreon supporters get an ad-free RSS feed. You can even join our deck donation tier to get your very own episode.
Join the Doodle Maniacs at patreon.com/eternaldoodles. Now back to the show.
And when you talked about that, I was thinking, because I have sort of, luckily nobody that I'm going to be playing in the CDH event at what's called the Steel City Spectacular is going to be listening to this, so they won't know about my super secret tech. But Phil, to that same example, when we were playing Premodern, I kind of stumbled across a modern card that did something because I was looking at power sync in like stasis.
Yep.
And back in the day, power sync was so busted because
So good,
interrupts were faster than instants. So if I power sync you and you don't have a interrupt to respond to it with, you're tapped out. Right? If on your turn you have 15 mana and I have 16 mana and you cast a spell and I tap you out basically because you don't have anything else you can do, I have free reign on my turn to do whatever I want. And I was thinking about this in terms of Legacy. Are there any cards that are like that in Legacy? Are there any interrupts in Legacy? And there are, Phil. There are interrupts in Legacy, right?
Split second,
extirpate. Good call. You got it, right? So I'm playing in now a common win con in CEDH is Demonic Consultation into Thassa's Oracle, right? I like extirpate there because everyone's got like 20 pieces of interaction and you've got 3 other people all vying to like either have this guy win or not win, or like everyone's got an angle, right? You've got 3 people, and it almost never behooves you to remember we talked about guns or butter.
Yes.
Right, same situation, right? Almost always behooves you to be butter and not guns. You want to be the guy doing the Demonic Consultation, Thassa's Oracle, as opposed to the guy stopping that from happening. But if you can use that to eliminate a player, or to not only eliminate a player, but gain some sort of advantage with the other 2 people, maybe make them make a couple of, exchanges first, that kind of thing. And knowing that you have the button, right, to stop everything, right, that no one can stop you on, assuming that I don't think people are really playing like Thoughtseize, in a 3-player, 4-player format. So Extirpate is a card that I think can also translate over to Legacy, because Thoughtseize is a card that exists and whatever, but that doesn't mean that like Surgical Extraction isn't good enough, right? And for 1 black mana, if you're in the mirror, if you're playing, or you're just playing a black deck, if you're playing like blue-black, tempo or black anything, Extirpate at 1 mana isn't too expensive, and it is just lights out. Like, you didn't get to do your thing. You probably wasted 2 cards, right? Like,
what you're making me reminded me of like another reason why I got to Flusterstorm was like all of the things that I had otherwise tried that are like similar to Extirpate in that space. Like I tried I'm always forgetting, it's the white version of the black Premodern card where it's white mana, exile a card from a graveyard, and has flashback for white.
I don't know what it's called.
I'm forgetting it off the top of my head.
Ray of Revelation?
No, that's the Destroys Enchantments. But in Premodern, the original version of the card was black. It was black mana, exile a card from graveyard, and had flashback for black.
Is
Coffin Purge.
that card?
It's the white Coffin Purge.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting what it's called, but I've play tested it a bunch because I was like, I need a way to be able to have this sort of removal spell through a Thoughtseize. Because I was like, anything that I hold up, like even if I have Surgical, like the opponent just takes it a little bit slower, casts the Thoughtseize, blows up that whole plan. And then I was like, oh, well, that's another spot where I enjoyed Flusterstorm because it did that. But like Extirpate wasn't something that was high on my mind. But it's possible that if you are in black, and I mean, what deck isn't in black these days? But not being in black or being in black, Extirpate seems like a pretty hot pivot, because it's the same thing, right? Just being able to win the counter ward, knowing that like the stuff that they get to force through. It comes back around to like Daze. We got to keep Daze in the format because it helps protect combo from overwhelming the format. And I'm like, the only deck that Daze is in now are the combo decks. It's in Reanimator, it's in Breakfast, it's in Doomsday. Like Daze
Purify the Grave, by the way.
Purify the Grave is what the card is called. Yeah, so like Daze is not stopping the combo decks. It is propelling the combo decks. And so it's just like you just are never winning those wars. And like stuff like Extirpate, just making it so that like
what war?
Exactly, right? Like you have to like it's essentially you have to go into the battle knowing that you're going to win, given the.
And this is what I talked about with the X factor. Like you have to figure out something, right? It can't be the decks, right? The decks are kind of set, unless you're where you're playing like a different, an off meta deck. For the most part, people are walking into these tournaments playing a meta deck, right? Then that means if you're going to need to make these minor changes that are going to spell the difference between winning and losing in these matches. Flusterstorm, Extirpate, Purify the Grave, and I think that's where you want to be. Also, let me know below if you got Purify the Grave before we did. That's just say I got it before you guys said something.
I've played a bunch of that card. I just I always in my head it's just it's the white shifted card from Coffin Purge.
Yeah, I didn't even put that in my head that was a time shifted kind of thing.
It's essentially you get to hold open your mana, and then if they Thoughtseize you, they don't actually solve the problem that they're looking to solve, right? Now, they can if they have Thoughtseize plus an additional backup for that one card, but then at least you have the answer that then you can fight back over. So, I don't know. It's just trying to make it so that
each of those solves a different problem. Like, if the opponent Thoughtseizes me with Extirpate, then they got me, right? But if they Thoughtseize me with this, then they don't got me. Right, it's all every one of these situations is you can't get a perfect answer. Because we've learned that
the difference is if you look at how I assume the position that when Thoughtseize is one of the best things to be doing, a format is terrible.
Yeah,
because it is always going to be
because you're doing it proactively, right?
Well, you're doing it proactively, but also it's the type of thing that when you run into it against a lot of different strategies, particularly the best strategies in a format, it just makes it so that you can never actually do anything other than the same thing a lot. Because you're never actually going to be able to put a composite piece together. So if we look at the top decks, it's Reanimator, where it's obviously it's the best deck going right now. But then everything else that is seeing top play is Mystic Forge, which is just mana plus all haymakers that read ostensibly I win on it, right? Who cares what it is? If it's a One Ring, if it's a Karn, if it's a Mystic Forge, it all just is 4 drops that say I win that you cast on turn 2, and then same thing with Oops, just trying to say I win. Same thing, but those Reanimator, Oops, Doomsday, those are all Thoughtseize decks. And if you look at the other top decks that aren't black, that's not Mystic Forge, it's Nadu. And if you look at Breakfast and Nadu, it's just all the same shit. It's just all the cards are just redundant pieces that you're just looking to assemble together, whether it's Cephalid Illusionist or Nadu, plus any of the things that target
Shuko or Core, yeah.
And then the rest of it is just we just get to play Tameo because it's an overpowered thing that also shouldn't exist. But aside from that, it's just the blue suite, Forest, Ponder, Brainstorm, Days, and then the cards that just do all the same thing over and over again. And that's what other strategy can exist in this type of environment? They don't.
Well, there's so a couple final thoughts here. As we close this episode, there's a great episode of Distraction Makers where they talk about proactive. There's a mistake in CEDH, which is the fact that proactively Force of Willing is or Pact of Negation or whatever. Doing free interaction that results in you winning the game is the thing to do. That's what you want to be doing if you're playing CEDH, right? So that's an interesting point. But the final kind of tie the room together thing that I wanted to say about the vindication of all this is that the gauntlet situation can only help you so much. You've sort of put yourself as a legacy player, as a pre-modern player, somebody bought into any game, really, as somebody that's really grokked the game, as I think we and most of our listeners have, is that you're going to be in a room full of killers, the 30 plus years of Magic the Gathering playing for me, Phil, people beating me are generally, they're invested, it's not like I'm playing against scrubs, so the people that beat us are also very good at the game, right? Which is not to say that the people playing me in Sorcery were bad at the game, but many of those people do not have 30 plus years of Magic the Gathering to straddle, they're jumping into Sorcery as people who maybe they played EDH a lot and were ooh, this seems like a cool game. Or maybe they used to play Magic back in the 90s and they're ooh, this art is awesome. There's a lot of reasons to play Sorcery, between the art being all non-digital art. The community's pretty rad. The game itself has an old school kind of aesthetic, but none of those say I have to be a murderer in this game, right? If as soon as somebody plays Legacy, you're that guy's a killer. You know that most people playing Legacy are just they're in the zone. They're in the competitive space, right? And so that's kind of the thing that I beyond the gauntlet was that when I walk into a random tournament, I am already advantaged because I've had 30 plus years of playing in a competitive mind, right? the random guy that I play in like round 2 or 3 of a sorcery tournament does not have that, like, is not taking the game as seriously as I'm taking any game, right? So, like I said, to tie the whole room together, this was a vindication of our strategies and proof that, like, hey, I'm not actually terrible at Magic the Gathering. I'm playing maniacs that are also very good at Magic the Gathering, right? So I think with that in mind, there's a lot of good, like, mental good to come out of that situation too, because I'm like, okay, like, I have the talent, I have the drive. I need to try harder in Legacy if I want to make things happen there, because I'm going to have to step it up a notch over the people that are already, like, on my level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that said, thanks for watching. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button.
You can also support us on patreon.com/eternaldurdles, which now offers the new Deck Donation tier.
During July, the Deck Donation patrons will get a 2-for-1 special where both Phil and I will run your deck through a league.
I'll play literally whatever you want.
So brew your spiciest or stock us up with a stock list.
I'll literally play whatever you want.
Thanks for watching.